Good evening and welcome to the Dyspraxic magazine's Black History Month event. And I'm really excited to host this, and I want to thank Dyspraxic magazine for putting this on. I'm joined by four incredible guests that are going to share their stories about what it's like to be Black and Dyspraxic. And without further ado, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves before we get into questions. So, Buki, would you like to go ahead?
Okay. Hi, my name's called Bookie ORJ. I'm 31 years young. I'm a part-time student and I work part-time and I am and I have dyspra and I am a dyspraxic male from in between the middle the wait, let me get it worded a bit better. So my apologies. I work wait, no, let me get it right. I apologize, sorry. I live in between Essex and London, so I just live in the middle.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for
Hi,
that. Over to you, Shay.
great. Hi, my name is Ulusheta, also known as Shay. I work in digital marketing, but I've written a book called Black and Neurodiverse. Um, I grew up in a place called Nottingham, but I currently live in Manchester. And there's a bit, that's just a bit of information about myself. But I also am a dyspraxic woman.
Awesome. Awesome. Everyone should get the book, by the way. I still haven't read it, but it's definitely on my list. Just keeping it real. Over to you, Daniel. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Daniel Taylor. I'm 41. I work in the mental health sector. I am a content creator online for Disconnect Adults, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Really happy to have you too. Perhaps you can share a bit about Disconnect Adults in a bit when you talk
Yes.
about more about your story. And last but not least, over to you, Esther.
My name is Esther Femini. I think I'm the eldest person in the group, so I'm not going to reveal my age. No, really. I live in London and I'm a study skills strategist, and I'm also dyspraxic.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Can you guys tell me about when and how you were diagnosed about dyspraxia? What was that experience like for you? And we're gonna go the opposite way around. Over to you, Esther.
Oh, okay. So I first found out that I was dyspraxic when I was in my second year of doing my PhD.
Okay.
I was doing a PhD in criminology, and it was brought to my attention by my supervisor who said, Esther, what you said and what you've written is not the same thing. I think there could be something going on here. And then I went and got diagnosed.
Okay. How was that journey for you? What was that experience like?
It was relief because I always knew that growing up there was something not right. There's just something there. I felt I was different in comparison to my peers and my siblings.
Yeah.
Excelled in chess, very good at sports, but when you look at dyspraxia, they just think that you're going to struggle with sports. I always knew there was something not right, so it was a relief.
Okay. I can really relate to being very good to sharing ideas orally but not really written down. And doing the PhD is not easy. Haven't done
No.
it yet, but that's impressive. Over to you, Daniel. What was it like? I'm getting diagnosed. How did you get diagnosed, and when did you get diagnosed?
Well, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 19 years old. I was also at university at the time. I slipped through the nets, you could say, through primary school, secondary school. Teachers knew there was something wrong, but nothing significant was done to get me diagnosed at the time. And I, my mother was concerned, so we went to student services, and they arranged for an educational psychologist to come and give me an assessment. But that came at a cost; it wasn't free.
Okay. Okay. Aw- Awesome. And yeah, we can talk a bit more about those barriers with like costs and stuff because
Yeah.
that is sometimes that affects a lot of people, including ethnic minorities. Over to you, Shay. What was that experience like for you?
Myself, I'm not really the sportiest. I remember kind of like not being sporty at school, kind of just being considered as like a clumsy child when it comes to like doing my laces and stuff. Struggled with that, but didn't think it was anything other than the fact that, oh, maybe I'm just a bit clumsy. So I'd probably say like similar to Daniel at university. I was 19 years old. I think it was just a suspicion of dyslexia more than anything else. So I went to like the Wellbeing Centre and went through the process to eventually get an educational psychologist to do a few assessments on me. And so, yeah, they did say I had dyslexia, but they also said I had something called dyspraxia. And I actually didn't know what dyspraxia was when they said I had that. So I really went on a journey to try and like, learn more about it. And it's interesting because even now till today, I can still see like the effects of it, like driving. It's definitely been a long journey and still something that I'm learning to do. So yeah, I'd say I'm still on a journey to learn more about it. But yeah, for the most part, I just thought I was a bit clumsy. I didn't know that okay, maybe there's something deeper, there's something there as to why some things don't come as easy.
Yeah. I mean, being having sport quite challenging is something that many of the dyspraxics can relate to. And I know that in the black community, stereotypes are we're supposed to be quite athletic and good at sport. So being dyspraxic definitely challenges that stereotype.
Mm.
I also find driving quite difficult as well. Can you drive now?
No, still learning, but we will get there. Yeah.
Yeah, we can relate. Definitely, the struggle is definitely real.
Mm.
Becky, over to you. When and how were you diagnosed?
Okay, then. Just like many people here, I myself was diagnosed in my very first year of university. If yeah, I was diagnosed in my first year of university when I was 22 back in 2015, where basically, essentially, before that, like my whole life, I always knew that I was odd. Like I always knew that because I'm just like naturally clumsy. Like Shay says, I'm really like bad with like tying like shoelaces, along with I'm not very good at like sports, and I'm like really bad at like carrying like heavy boxes, and I'm just bad at just like tying things in general. So in my first year of university, I got something called a mentor, where she said to me, where she and my wellbeing team said to me on Bookie, we think you benefit from getting tested for dyspraxia. Where from what I remember now, because this is like almost like 10 years ago, I feel like I'm getting old now. From what I remember, they just like showed me like a lot of like pictures along with like different like texts, just like a lot of like different pictures, and then it was just like trying to help me how I could like go through like university, and then there was like, yes, the test came out positive. You are dyspraxic, and
Mm,
and before this, like I heard like the word dyspraxic briefly, but I properly didn't know what it was.
yeah,
Yeah,
like it's really interesting. I can definitely relate to the struggles of tying shoelaces. I've still haven't learned it. I recently said this year that
mm,
online that sometimes people remind you that your shoelaces are untied, and it's like it's because I struggle to tie them. So I
mm.
try as much as possible to use shoes that don't have laces. I think it's
Absolutely.
really interesting. Pardon,
I
Vicky?
yeah, I always say, especially with like someone with like dyspraxia, especially with like people who are like neuro like divergent, there is there is always an alternative for
Yeah,
something that you can't do.
definitely, definitely.
Like there are like now like shoes that like I now have like these like shoes where even though that they have laces, but they are I'm already like tired. If you get what I mean?
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm aware of those, and they make me comfy.
Yeah, there's a
And it
lot
makes,
of alternatives out there. There's definitely so much more that we can do to be more inclusive, but we're
absolutely.
definitely on the way. But
Mhm.
I think it's really interesting that everybody on the panel got diagnosed in uni or in higher education, which I didn't know before now. And I think it goes to show that how we kind of probably need to change that, because the reality is not everybody goes to higher education. I know that in the Black community,
Mm.
education and especially higher education is quite important. If
Mhm.
you tell your parents that you're not going to university, they'll be like, what do you mean? So it's something that, is quite important within the Black community, but diagnosis needs to happen a lot earlier, in my opinion. So, and like more needs to be done in that. So let's begin to think about, I just mentioned families' reaction to not going to higher education. What was your family's reaction when you disclosed your diagnosis? And how did that shape your journey with dyspraxia? Daniel, can you start with that question?
Yes, well, my mother was there every step of the way. Um, she's really been fighting for me. She's been fighting for me through primary school, secondary school. Um, there's been a lot of barriers leading up to my diagnosis. And when we finally got that diagnosis, it came as a relief, because finally the thing that has been causing me a lot of stress, well, to a degree, growing up, it has a name, and there are ways to navigate around it and work with it. And I was relieved as well. um, so yeah, my mum was there all every step of the way. She was very supportive, and we were just looking into ways of how to what to do next, what tools I needed to help me get through the rest of university and beyond. So yes, I have to credit my mother for really supporting me there.
Understandable. Shout out to mothers. They're always helpful. Esther, over to you. What was your family's reaction like, and how did that shape your
It
journey?
was mixed. It was mixed. I think some people, I think one family member thought you could catch it, which was hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
how do you catch that?
Mm.
Very hilarious. That was just really funny. But I think it was a mixed reaction, because I think they sort of realised you managed to get this far to do a PhD,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you just managed. But I was struggling, if you see what I mean. So I did leave my PhD, then I went into the world of neurodiversity. So I was just thinking, I've got two children. It's pointless doing a PhD in criminology. I need to support my children. So that's what I did.
Makes sense. Like I always say that dyspraxia doesn't affect intelligence, but it means that you have to work harder than most people in the room. Some
Definitely.
people don't realize the amount of effort it takes with education. And
Mm.
then also the fact that you had to leave that PhD also talks about some of the challenges with pursuing higher education as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I did go back during COVID, and I done a law course. So
Yeah,
anything's possible. Mm.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. What about you, Shay? How
Um,
was
yeah, I'd say for myself, my parents had really seen the struggle. So when it kind of came to my GCSEs, I didn't get what I was predicting, and it meant I had to redo another year. So I think they had kind of like journeyed with me, kind of as I was like struggling through that. Well, maybe not struggling, as I was like going through that. And so when I managed to get to like university, I think, especially my mum was definitely like an advocate for like go to the wellbeing centre, see what support you can get, see what help you can get. Um, and so yeah, when I was eventually diagnosed, I don't know if I'd say they were relieved. I definitely was relieved, but they were definitely supportive of it. It wasn't something that they were like that they shunned, or it wasn't something that they were against. I think they were definitely interested in like learning more, but I think they were happy. Yeah, I think happy would probably be
Okay.
the response to it.
What about yourself, Becky? What was your reaction like with your family?
Well, my mum's essentially been like pushing me. I'm 100% like step of the way. So what happened was essentially like the well-being team also like told my mum about me being dyspraxia, about me being dyspraxic. So I guess she was relieved and be like, oh, okay, so you have dyspraxia, along with another like medical condition, which is a conversation discussed for another day, where she was more like relieved and more like, okay, so you have dyspraxia and dyslexia as well. That's
Mm.
good. And then she was saying, so that's another one of the things that makes you amazing and makes you unique. And you should like, and she was just constantly like telling me I should see it as an advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely go on to the advantages later on in this discussion. And I'm glad that in generally people had a positive experience, and then
Mm.
again, mothers definitely play a crucial role in that. Um, my experience, because I was diagnosed a lot earlier, was diagnosed at the age of 4.
Okay.
On the whole, I can't remember how my family reacted, and my parents have been very supportive as well. Some external members of my family, so cousins and uncles, didn't really understand that because, like it's like Esther was alluding to, some people just feel like, well, you're doing your GCSEs and your A levels, okay. Surely there's not an issue. So, and not it's not everybody that you're going to explain really how dyspraxia affects you on a daily basis. Which brings us to our next question. Shay, how does dyspraxia affect you daily?
I think it's kind of changed as time has gone on, but I can definitely say that today, when you guys were talking about the whole shoes and shoelaces conversation, I can definitely relate to that. I currently have like these slip-on shoes. They're basically shoes, but they don't have a back, and I love them because they're so easy to put on. So that's definitely something that I wear on a regular, basically almost every single day. And then I guess when it comes to like driving or transportation, I heavily rely on like walking around places or Uber because I'm still on that journey learning how to drive. What else can I say? I think I used to avoid things that I kind of found quite difficult, especially when it came to the sports. But I'm realizing that I'm stepping into a season where I'm trying to embrace that a bit more. So like I wouldn't really say that like I'm really into running or like badminton, but initially when I started I was terrible at them. But as I've just kept at it, I've gotten like better at it, and I'm really enjoying like just getting better at something that I find
Hmm.
quite challenging. So yeah, but to answer the question, how does it shape my how how does dyslexia shape your daily life? Yeah, I think there's challenges, but I just see it as an opportunity of something I can just try and overcome, really, or not even overcome, but just a challenge. I just see it as a daily challenge, but it's not something that I have to avoid, which I think I've tried to do previously. There's some things where I can see like, okay, how can I go around this, or how can I kind of master this thing. And the things that are too difficult, I just find things that work for me.
Makes sense. I
Yeah.
know talked about working in digital marketing. Does dyspraxia impact you professionally in any way?
Um, I think it's a big help working in digital marketing. So I work remotely, I work at home. But I remember when I used to work in an office, and like one of the things I kind of found quite challenging was like the busyness, the noise, just like I guess like it's a sensory overload. Can be quite stimulating at times. So I really do appreciate like if I work at home and kind of try and control my own environment, whether it's like the music or working in a quiet environment. So in work, that's something that's really, really helped. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I loved what you said about trying new things and practicing.
Mm,
I often say that practice doesn't have to make perfect, but
mm.
practice can definitely mean progress. And as long as you're making progress, that's the most important thing. Esther, how has dyspraxia affected different parts of your life, both personally and professionally?
So I think the struggle for me is still, tying my laces and that.
Mm,
I think if I get really annoyed, I just put the laces, I sort of like put the laces in the shoes and just walk on them anyway if I just can't be bothered. I don't know if anyone else does that. Um, I think because I'm a study skills strategist, all the skills that I learned because I've been in this field for a long time, I can share it with my students. So I think I'm very compensated as well. So that's been very useful. I
amazing.
think the challenge is that sensory overload. I think if you work remotely and you're out and about, like the rush hour can be such a challenge
Yeah,
because if you're working from home and then it's just really busy, it can be a bit of overload. But barring that, I think I'm quite compensated, yeah, with the skills that I've learned over the years, learning from my students as well as my own experience. So yeah, quite fortunate.
that's great because it's funny how everyone's talking about tying shoelaces, but the fact that you were able to have problems, but also discover solutions and strategies that you can share with your students.
Mm,
That's really great.
yeah.
What
And it's
about you, Daniel? How has dyspraxia impacted your personal life and professional life on a daily basis?
It's impacted me in terms of my organization skills. Um, I I can be messy with my environment sometimes, but I rely on software to help me stay organized.
Mm,
I use things like a dictaphone if I'm in an environment where there's too much information, and like some of you said, I get sensory overload as well. I don't like being in noisy, busy environments. It's stressful. Um, I have to go somewhere quiet, and it can come across that I'm not being social as well when I do that. Um, so it has affected me that way, but I like to focus on some of my strengths in terms of my creativity. I'm trying to push myself out. I'm trying to get myself out of my comfort zone. That's why I'm here on this platform. And yeah, I and it's just been really great so far being able to do that. And I feel empowered each time.
amazing. I'm glad that you were willing to go out of your comfort zone and join this panel, which is fantastic. And it's great that you've discovered your strengths, such as creativity, etc. We're definitely gonna talk on strengths a little bit in my next question. And also, I like the fact that you talked about assistive technology like a dictaphone and stuff because that is really important because we do have the tech out there that can support us um on a daily basis. Vicky, same question to you. How does dyspraxia impact your life on a daily basis, both personally and professionally?
I'd just say like life in general. Like one of the things I learned how to do, I think since like last year because for ages I've been like so because I'm really bad when it comes to reading maps and looking at maps. However, I've found a new like technique that can now help me with like when it comes to directions. Where now I don't know if you've seen it, but Google Maps has something called a live view,
Mm,
which I use daily now whenever I'm in London. Where whenever I need to get somewhere, I always use live view to help me like get to like wherever I need to get to,
yeah.
which is really beneficial and it's really good for me. Along with, I'd say dyspraxia, I wouldn't say affects me, but it shows. But when I'm socializing with people,
Hmm.
I'd say it makes me me when I'm socializing with other people, like because people would see like my quirky personality, where sometimes I can be a bit clumsy with my words,
Mm.
but I just see that as like a positive, really, because at the end of the day, it makes me me, along with all these other traits that just make me me as well. What else? As well as I'm trying to think now. Along with when it comes to like I'm I'm okay when it comes to walking downstairs. Yeah, downstairs. But when I'm walking upstairs, like my knees could really like pain, and it could cause like feet numb. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I try to like. So that's why now a lot of stations have things like lifts. However, when however the downside to that is whenever a station doesn't have a lift, and I've then got to like take my time walking upstairs, or when the escalator is not working, I've then got to like take my or when the escalator isn't moving, I've then got to like take my time to when it comes to like walking down the escalator,
Yeah.
so that I don't trip. Then I tell people, and then I tell people calmly and kindly if they could like move to the other side so that they could like get to where they need to get to faster, because if they continue to wait for me, it will just it's gonna it's gonna take forever. So I say to people calmly and nicely, if it's possible, you can move to the other side, and I will get there eventually.
Mm.
I understand that. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing. I saw everybody nodding their head when we talked about live view on Google Maps. So I take it
yeah.
that everyone struggles with finding their
Like
way.
sense of like direction. Even when people like tell me like verbally, like where's number 2 tennis road? Or yeah, take a right, take a left, take another right, take another left. I'm like in like the next like 5 seconds, I'm gonna forget that.
Yeah.
So I now use live view. Sometimes it could be make me a bit clumsy because sometimes I might get the directions wrong, but the majority of the time I'm really good with it.
Yeah. And I love how you said that you're clumsy, but your quirkiness makes you you and you're
Yeah,
comfortable with that. That's great.
yeah.
Shinto, I'm gonna call you Shinto as well because
Mhm.
I'm also Nigerian and I like the name. So
Oh, thank you.
I'll mix it between Shay and Shinto.
That's fine.
I was gonna say you were nodding your head when we
Yeah,
talked
I can
about Google
relate.
Maps. So do you
Yeah,
want to touch on that?
yeah, no, I can definitely relate. I think in terms of like sense of direction, I think it's definitely something that I tend to struggle with from time to time. Um, and especially when you said about if someone was to verbally tell you kind of where to go, I'm like, no, I already know that that's something that I struggle with.
Mm.
I think, yeah, definitely Google Maps has been a big help. And I think it's really funny because sometimes I forget it's Google Maps and I'll be like, oh yeah, I just, I know where I'm going.
Hmm.
But sometimes even with Google Maps, I do find that sometimes it can be a bit tricky to track where I'm going as well.
Yeah,
And it's not good, and I'm also grateful that I'm able to do it. But I find myself, especially in London, just using Uber because even if it's like a not a long distance, if I'm able to. But I literally did it like I think like 2 weeks ago. I think it was like a 10 minute or 15 minute walk. But just because I knew my sense of direction would be off, I think I just got an Uber because
Uber.
yeah,
Yeah,
it would tell
But
me.
I guess the Uber now contributes to the Dyspraxic tax.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Mm.
mm,
Okay, a lot of you have talked about some of your strengths, and I think this question is really important because one thing in the neurodiversity movement, we like to shift away from the medical model and just the emphasis on deficits and challenges, but actually realizing that, like every individual, neurodivergent individuals have strengths as well as weaknesses, and those strengths definitely deserve to be celebrated. So, Esther, could you tell us what your unique strengths are that you think are attributed to dyspraxia, and how these strengths empower you and motivate you?
Oh, I think in my family, I'm known as a planner. When it comes to Christmas, it'll be September. What is the plan? What are we doing? So,
Yeah,
very super organized, even though I wasn't organized initially, but became super organized. And also, I think I'm very intuitive as well. So, I can sort of pick up on things and also problem solving. So, that's what I would say they would be my main strengths.
fantastic. It's really interesting that you said the first one was organization, because I would say that dyspraxia makes me disorganized. But I guess it goes to show how dyspraxia affects people differently, and
It can
everybody.
be organized chaos because you would know how you would work, but for someone else, they would struggle, but you would know.
I understand what you mean by organized chaos, but mine
Yeah.
is definitely just chaos. Can't, I can't lie to you. But Becky, what about you? You talked a little bit about your strengths. What other unique strengths do you have that you feel dyspraxia gives you?
God, there's so many. Well, I
I love
think
that for you.
one of like the things I would say is that it helps. Okay, one of the things I'd say empathy for others.
Okay.
That like no matter that I have a lot of empathy for others, and I like to like help people from like different walks of life, and I like to like interact with people from all walks of life.
Mm,
Along with another strength, I believe I do have. Along with like another like strength, I believe I do have is when it comes to like you know when it comes to like seeing things. I like to like see things maybe other people like don't see things.
mm,
Maybe other people like don't see things. Then they're like, you know, and then I explain it. Oh, it's a bit like this, and they're like, oh, I didn't think of it like that. And
mm.
they're like, yeah, this is how this sort of thing works. So I'd say that I like to see things from diff. So I like to like see pictures from other angles that other people perhaps wouldn't see. I
Yeah.
guess that's a massive strength, along with my determination for
Awesome.
doing life.
Awesome. I love you said that you had a lot of strengths. And when you say see things that people don't really see, that kind of aligns with what Esther was talking about, being creative and innovative. And I think that's something that cuts across many neurodivergent people, and your resilience. That's amazing. But I think one which something that I really identified with, you talked about empathy, and
Hmm.
that's truly amazing because I would say that empathy is one of my strengths too. But you don't normally associate black men with being empathetic,
Of
and I
course,
really believe that that is a really interesting thing that
absolutely, yes.
dyslexic men could
I
have. Yeah,
always, yeah, I always feel like, especially when I was younger as well, like I always we feel that black people they always try to get stereotyped to be a certain way,
yeah,
or like, they always try to act like a certain way. But if a black person like says one thing, they'd be like, "Oh, why are you saying it? Oh, why are you speaking like this way? Why are you speaking this? Why are you speaking that way? You're black." Da, 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 da,
yeah,
da. But I'm like no words at the end of the day. Yes, I'm black, but I'm allowed to like say whatever words I feel.
yeah, definitely. By the way, for those people that I've coughed quite a lot, I currently have a cold, and I've done a lot of speaking
Oh,
in the last week or two, and I had water beside me, and I finished it before the call. So if I cough, apologies. Um,
you're doing an amazing well to be here, though. So well done.
thank you, thank you, Daniel. What about you? What are some of your strengths and superpowers?
Very similar. I enjoy helping people.
Okay,
I love helping people. That's why I work in the mental health sector. I really enjoy doing that. I mentioned earlier my creativity. I like to come up with good ideas,
yeah,
and I like I like solving puzzles and problems.
Hmm.
It's a hobby of mine. So uh, those are one of my strengths.
Fantastic. I love, again, helping people, empathy, really great strengths. And then you can see the common theme about problem solving, which is really, really important in today's world. I use the word superpowers with a slip of the tongue. There's been a lot of controversy with that within the term because the word superpower sometimes puts a lot of pressure for us to show up, but it's actually the word strengths and abilities is more similar to what we're trying to say because superpower makes you think that we're more different than we actually are. Well, over to you, Shay. What are your unique strengths that you feel the Spectre has given you?
I promise I'm not copying, but I was going to say empathy, consideration, and thinking outside the box.
It's all good.
Yeah, definitely can relate with the empathy thing. And yeah, I guess with that comes the kind of whole consideration of just the fact that people have different experiences,
Yeah,
and I guess like depending on what you're doing, it's good to consider that just so you can cater for people. And I think I quite I like the idea of like being able to tailor to different people and their experiences or their needs. I think it definitely comes from all of those things. So.
awesome. I like the fact that empathy was a theme. This is not a plug, but it is a plug. I did a blog for Black History Month for the Dyspraxia magazine, and I talked about how, like I just said previously, empathy is one of the ways that I reclaim my narrative or what it means to be a black man.
Mhm.
And I think empathy is really important. So I'm glad that that came up. So, yeah, really interesting strengths. And for anyone that is tuning into this, either live or on the recording, I would really encourage you to celebrate your strengths in addition to understanding your challenges. Okay, when we think about, obviously this is Black History Month and we're dyspraxic, so the topic of intersectionality is quite important. So what aspects of being black and dyspraxic do you think are often misunderstood or overlooked by people who are either black or dyspraxic? So touching on the intersectionality piece,
Bless you.
what does it what is it like to live within the intersection of being black and dyspraxic? And I want Daniel to start with this.
Well, from what I've noticed, some people can have very negative perceptions. Um, I've because of the way I am, I'm quite an introvert
Okay.
as well, and I could come across awkward and shy. And when I'm not smiling, people see me as quite intimidating.
Yeah.
And but I'm really a nice person as well. But um, I do get some very negative stares and looks because of it. Um, and it's quite hard. Um, I, I suppose another thing that I would like to bring up growing up in school, um, I was treated as a little bit of a nuisance
Okay.
because of the way I wouldn't engage with other students. It was hard for me to concentrate on my work. And there was always this perception of black kid causing trouble in the classroom. He doesn't want to learn,
Yeah.
you know. So there was all so there was that side of it as well.
Yeah.
And I think if people just spoke to me and allowed me that time to sort of express myself, there wouldn't be any misunderstandings, but there was always judgment, prejudgment already.
Yeah, and that prejudice is never cool. Esther, what about you? What is it like to live within the intersection
Very
of
similar to Daniel, actually. Labelled at school, always in a room called NY27. They would just call my name on the tannoy all the time because I was always thrown out of class. And again, yeah, because they just didn't understand. I knew I was brighter than my peers, but it's about articulating it. So
yeah,
it was very nice to go on a school reunion years down the line. And when I told people how far I'd come, even they were shocked because they thought I had this label.
well, I think, you know, what the way people experience education has a really big impact to their life trajectory. And if you don't do the work to change that, it can really have a big catastrophic impact. And so we really need to be mindful about how we treat young people within the educational system, whether ethnic minorities, whether neurodivergent, whoever they are. So we really need to be more intentional. Shay, what about you? What was it like? What's it like to be a black woman who is also dyspraxic?
So I can definitely say at school, I hated school.
Okay.
Definitely think I was misunderstood, and yeah, I definitely went through a bit of like I say a battle, because a part of me was, oh, was it not picked up? But at the same time too, I remember being taken out of the classroom. But then also I remember a bit of unnecessary pressure being applied to me. So I remember really struggling to hold a pencil, and my teacher insisting, no, 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 you need to hold it in this particular way. So definitely misunderstood. A part of me wants to say that it was missed, but then also another part of me was a bit taken aback because there was like adjustments put in place, although this wasn't communicated to my parents, so they were kind of left in the dark. So yeah, I'd probably say like yeah, misunderstood. And yeah, I want to make sure I answer this question specifically, especially yeah, definitely felt misunderstood. Kind of felt like it was missed. And I think it was also, I think it's problematic as well that it took up until university for me to be diagnosed. So yeah, that's what I've said on that.
Yeah, it shouldn't have taken that long in an ideal situation. Vicky, my brother, so what is it like to be a black man with dyspraxia, that intersection?
Okay, this is a really an interesting one because I've always like say it, and I always felt. I remember like when I was like younger, like years ago, I didn't really like. I don't remember any. I don't remember any other black neurodivergent people, let alone males.
Mm,
So I always felt when I was younger, like I used to like try to like hide that.
yeah,
When I got to like 18 or 19, I think that's when I started to like celebrate it more and like appreciate my differences. And I always wait, hold a minute. Let me read the question. My apologies, thank you.
no worries, take your time.
Yeah, because I always feel that, especially when it comes to other black people, they always like. It's like what I said to the previous answer, but it's just me essentially. I'm expanding on it. Like a lot of people think black people are only one certain way.
Yeah,
Essentially, it's kind of like people are essentially trying to like copy and paste all black people. That's the
mm,
way I see it.
yeah,
But know that, understand that there are like different kinds of black people from all different walks of life, and that unfortunately, as me being like dyspraxic, because I'm like clumsy, and because I can't walk in a straight line, because I sometimes like knock things over or drop things, or because I sometimes like get my words muddled up or slur my words, even like stammer. At times, people assume I'm drunk when I'm not.
yeah,
yeah, so I always have to like tell people no, 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 no. I'm like neurodivergent. I'm like this is my struggle. But I've got like dyspraxia that makes me naturally clumsy as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hmm.
And not preconceived and people judging you just because you're
Yes. So
dyslexic.
yes, so they misunderstand why I'm behaving a certain way,
Yeah,
why I'm a certain way. Oh, how come I use this? How come I do something instead of this? How come I use something differently from other people?
yeah,
If you understand.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Sh-
100%.
Shay, over to you.
Yeah, sure. I think often there's a misconception of being slow, uh,
Yeah,
and there hasn't been consideration of the environment I'm in.
yeah,
So I sometimes think that depending on the environment I'm in, you're going to get a different outcome. So try and have a conversation to me in a loud room. I won't hear a single thing you're trying to say to me,
yeah,
and people might come to that conclusion. But then meet me in my environment, maybe where it's quieter, then there I can process the information. So I think generally that's just like a misconception that's there. But I also think as well, maybe because there's not that much representation, people kind of forget or they don't realize that actually, oh, Black people can have dyspraxia or they
yeah.
can be neurodivergent. So I think it's really good that we're doing things like this where we can have this conversation.
Yeah.
The lack of representation
Yeah.
is something that needs to be addressed,
Mm.
and that's why not only this event, but even the book you wrote is truly amazing because we need literature like that.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I always say as well is that like people who are like a lot of people get mixed up and they get confused when I say you know when we say the word dyspraxia and they're like, oh, don't you mean dyslexia?
yeah,
Mm.
They're like, why are you saying the word dyslexia wrong? And I was like, actually, dyslexia and dyspraxia are like two separate different things.
yeah,
So I have to like
definitely,
both.
definitely. Esther, what about you? What's it like to live within the intersection of being black and dyspraxic?
Oh, it can be challenging. I think it's got its strengths, and as like what Shay was saying, in my environment, I can be fine. I think anything that's like sort of oh god, what was I going to say? Yeah, it can be just sort of challenging sometimes. But if I'm in my own environment, I feel that I'm okay. And again, like what Bookie was saying, that you're explaining it to people and they just don't understand at all.
Yeah,
And I think this is why it's so great that we're doing this because I think we're not represented in literature. So well done, Shay, for writing your book. I think dyspraxia is like the Cinderella of all the neurodiverse conditions. It's just people still sort of struggle with what it means, and sometimes you have to spend quite a lot of time articulating it to them.
definitely.
And you're just thinking, there's stuff out there. Educate yourself. They
It's
really,
like,
but then I have to recognise I can't expect people to care. I have to advocate
yeah,
for myself.
especially because when we think about it, dyspraxia is actually more prevalent than what people think it is. There's a lot more people. It's not a rare neurotype. It's just something. It's just a neurotype that is not really talked about. So definitely more needs to be done.
There's
I
no research though. There's not a lot of research. I've looked at connected papers from a black perspective. No research whatsoever. None.
definitely from a black perspective, but there
None.
is a interesting website called Movement Matters
Mm-hmm.
that is about showcasing research into dyspraxia.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of black perspective for dyspraxic research, I'm an academic, and I hope by the grace of God within my career I can do something about that. So definitely watch the space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I often talk about how even though as a black person within the UK that has dyspraxia, when I think about it globally, I I am a person of privilege. So when you're particularly looking at our countries of heritage in the global south, what do you think the privileges are being dyspraxic in the UK compared to being dyspraxic in Africa or the Caribbean? And number part B to that question, if we could change or implement anything to support dyspraxics in the global south, what would it be? And I'm going to start with Daniel for that question.
I think easier access to getting a diagnosis would be one.
Yeah,
Um, there's a lot of barriers to getting a diagnosis from school, even today. Uh, and one of those barriers is going through your GP. There are GPs simply saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm not going to do that." And yeah, attitudes needs to change across the board.
yeah,
So that's one massive thing I think would change, because I think if you get easier access to getting a diagnosis, you could change the lives of so many people.
definitely, definitely. Shay, you were recently in Botswana, weren't
Mm,
you? And I saw that online.
mm,
Um, and you can touch on that in a little bit as you talk about this. But
mm,
if you could change anything to support dyspraxics globally,
mm.
what would that be? Especially thinking about the global south.
Well, I feel like there's still a lot of stigma when
Yeah,
it comes to talking about anything like dyspraxia, neurodiversity, even disability. And I think that's really preventing people from like exploring and learning more about it and even getting support, even if there is support. And then I think there's another aspect of like the resources. I think they really lack when it comes to the resources of just like how many educational psychologists are there, and even like the resources needed to like support someone too. So yeah, I'd probably change the whole stigma side of things, and I think that stigma kind of just starts to break down when you start to talk about it more, when there's like representation. Um, yeah, and I'd probably say even with within Botswana, it was really interesting. I was speaking to a lot of teachers, and even with a lot of teachers, a lot of them were saying that they were hesitant when it came to things like diagnosis, because they didn't know if people would now take advantage when it came to the whole diagnosis process and this, that, the other. And it was interesting to be able to speak to them, because I think in the event I went to, just through having like the topics about like dyspraxia, dyslexia, all of these different things, and just like kind of trying to break down that stigma of, of just trying to break down the stigma and trying to let them know that actually these, by knowing it can help someone kind of know the support that they need. It's just like you would do with anything else, just knowing more about yourself. So it was just really interesting to see the misconceptions that people had, and like kind of still have as well.
yeah, completely. Esther, over to you.
So I think I've written a list. Like with Daniel, I think attitudes need to change
Yeah,
because of the stigma. I think they need to change the whole thing of diagnosis, because we're not sick.
yeah,
Change it to assessment.
Mm,
And I also think there needs to be post assessment support, because I know that I was quite fortunate. Um, I was quite fortunate in the sense that I went to go and train in this field, but I know there's lots of people that they have the assessment and they don't get any post support until 5-10 years down the line, when
yeah,
it's crisis point where they're having challenges at work. So post assessment support is just not there. Whether that is coaching, I think what happens is people go to university and they can get the assistive technology, but they don't get the emotional support.
yeah,
And I think they need to address the emotional support before they even want to accept the assistive technology, because sometimes they haven't even unpacked what it means. Some of them
yeah,
haven't even looked at the report for years since they've had the assessment. So that's
yeah.
quite key.
And I love the fact that you talked about even in the UK, there still needs to be a better understanding of what support is
Mm.
available. I know just an hour ago I was talking about having more black people aware of coaching, for example, and just destigmatizing that. But
Mhm.
even when we think about access to work, right, that is such a UK thing. Like a lot of people, especially in the global south, they don't have disability allowance, they don't have access to work, they don't have assistive technology,
Mm.
and the level of understanding of neurodivergence is so low. And I think this is why the diaspora really needs to collaborate with other advocates across the globe to kind of increase that awareness. Bucky, over to you. Do you have anything to add to this question?
Absolutely. I've got a few, but I'd stick with one this time.
Yeah,
I think what I would say is that it means forever coaching is what I mean by that is because I feel that dyspraxics need coaching, like they need people to like coach them. Yeah, and they need kind of like mentor, sort of like a guide, someone that could be like their mentor and guide, not just for a couple of months or for like a year or so. Have someone be there for them throughout like the whole time.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
Life,
mean that, and I don't mean that just in the UK. I mean that globally. Have you have like a dyspraxic mentor that could just like help them with like daily life, along
mm,
with help, along with just have like a mentor for them to just be like an ally and to just like talk to, help them with like daily life and to also be an ally to them
yeah,
as well, and to make sure that they're okay, to make sure that they're mental, and to like check on the mental health, and to just be friendly. Really, that's what I would say is that we need like I'd say that dyspraxics need like a mentor.
yeah. I completely relate to that. And I
Yeah.
saw Daniel nodding his head. So, Daniel, do you have anything to add to that?
I completely agree. I think if I had mentorship
Mm,
um, from at least after I finished uni, that could have been that could be great. But mentorship from a child upwards is could be life changing as well,
yeah,
because you've got someone who's been there, done that, understands you,
mm,
and you could get that motivation to get through your studies, your grades, and achieving the things that you want.
yeah.
And I kind of wish I had that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, to push you in life. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
It's not
So,
every day you're going to feel 100%, but in
mm,
life, it's good to get that support.
so mentoring, coaching, sponsorship, allyship, someone that would just champion you to be the best version of yourself.
Mm.
Absolutely, to be with
Awesome.
you 100% of the way.
Before I put it to the audience for Q&A, we've got one final question.
Fab.
So, as a lot of you know, this year's theme in Black History Month is reclaiming the narrative. So, how do you feel, and what do you guys feel about the narrative of being Black and dyspraxic, and how can that narrative be reclaimed, and how can we do this together? There's quite a few things there. It's quite meaty,
Hmm.
but because of sake of time, I'm gonna ask for short and concise answers. If you can, over to you, Esther. Can you just kick us off?
I think that we need to work together
Yeah,
more. I think it shouldn't just be Black History Month where we come together. Maybe we need to have more forums and we need to meet and we need to sort of plan what that looks like. That's the
def-
first thing. I'm just trying to make it concise. Otherwise, I could talk about this topic forever. But I'm going to leave
definitely.
it there. I'm going to leave it there.
Appreciate that. I really appreciate that. But yeah, definitely coming together, collaborate, all through around the year. Daniel, what about you?
yes, I'd like to echo that. I completely agree. Um, it's going to take a lot of us to come together, talk, come up with ideas, um, go into places where, like the NHS, Slam, and major organisations, and talk to these talk to those people about how we can work together to improve the lives of so many young black children who have dyspraxia,
Definitely, definitely.
and adults too.
Completely agree. What about you, Shay? What what does reclaiming narratives mean to you, and how can we change it?
I'd probably say moving from being unseen to seen, and being visible, and just like the need for visibility. Because some people, they may say, I've never heard of like a black dyspraxic person, I don't know of a black dyspraxic person. I guess it kind of links in with the whole representation thing. I think that will really help break the stigma, and I think people can start to consider kind of like needs or adjustments when they're aware of the fact that, okay, as a presence, there are people who are black and dyspraxic. Okay, what can we do to support them? What can we do to include them, involve them?
Okay, awesome. What about you, Becky?
What I would say is that, like, even though like it is Black History Month, and I do support it, but one thing I've noticed, that one thing that never really gets, that I've never ever seen ever get spoken about in a Black History Month, or really ever gets seen, is, and I think this is extremely important, is talk about Black neurodiversity. Because from what I remember when I was in education, when I was in school, college, and university, when I was in like school or college, they would just talk about, like, the majority of the time. Yeah, they would just talk about like slavery and like Nelson Mandela. But I think there's so much more. There's like a wide web and a wide book of so
Yeah,
much that you could speak about. And one thing that never gets spoken about is Black people and dyspraxia, Black people and neurodiversity. When it comes
yeah.
to Black History Month, all there's literally there is always slavery, jollof rice, and jerk chicken. That's what I always.
What a combination! I never thought slavey jollof rice and jerk chicken would be said in the same sentence, but I hear
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's what I
Definitely.
always. Yeah, because that's what they always like do. Like they always like. Yeah, they don't go into like. Yeah, they don't talk about Black neurodiversity in,
Yeah,
uh, in Black History Month. I've never seen it. I've never heard of it.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. More definitely needs to be done to talk about the Black neurodiversity experience, not just in October, but throughout the year,
All
continuously.
year round, all year.
Exactly, exactly.
History is it just 1 month? It's all year.
Yeah. So we, if you're tuning in live, if you have any questions, please fire away. Before so we do have a few questions in the chat. Um Savior the Instagram BYP asks, may I ask what you all were like as a teenager? And maybe one or two of you would like to answer that.
Yeah, I'd like to answer that. I was pretty quiet, didn't really interact with many of the other children. I was very nerdy, loved my comic books, loved my anime, and I kept myself to myself really, and was often a target of bullying.
Hmm.
But generally, with the people I did get on with, they're all they were nice people, and I'm in touch with most of them today.
That's so good.
Mhm.
That's good. But I really resonate with that bullying piece. That made being a teenager quite difficult. Shay, over to you. What was that like?
I was a bit naughty. I was frustrated. I felt very misunderstood.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was like as a teenager. I wouldn't really say too introverted or too extroverted. Just felt very misunderstood. Maybe a little I'd say at times I was more to myself, but when comfortable, in an environment, like when in an environment when I was comfortable, I was a bit more extroverted. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Next question. And I'm gonna ask this to Esther. Have you been able to find a black community within dyspraxic communities?
Oh, it's been hard. It's
Yeah.
been hard trying to find people. They really. But the thing is, I think it's about you just keep on reaching out and forging friendships until you meet your tribe
Yeah.
of people. So yeah.
Definitely. What about you, Becky?
Same with what Esther's saying. I actually haven't. I'd say I only know now. I'd say like including you guys. I'd say I know about 5 other black dyspraxic people.
Yeah,
Mm,
I hear it.
yeah,
We are
so
small
it's a bit difficult. I'd say
because the neurodivergent community, the black neurodivergent
is
community is quite small, but the black
of course
dyspraxic community is even smaller. And this
absolutely.
and this is why I was really excited to invite you guys to the panel because hopefully now you guys know each other, you guys can connect and stuff, and we can do more things going forward. Um, Another question is, do you what words of encouragement do you have for other black dyspraxics who are new to learning about dyspraxia and maybe struggling with this new information or identity?
Find your tribe. That's what I would suggest. Find your tribe. Read up on what you can about dyspraxia, but find your tribe because they will celebrate you.
Okay, yeah, really important. I'm gonna follow up with that question. How do people find their tribe?
I think it's just like with events like this. It's like Tumi, I sort of reached out to you. I
Yeah,
saw Tumi on it's the same sort of event, and I sort of reached out when you shared your story. I shared my story, and then here we are.
yeah. So sometimes it's just a DM.
Yeah.
People only just a DM that way. I believe that's how I connected with you, Daniel, as well.
Mm,
And
Yes.
I know that you and I we've met up a few times as well because we live in a similar area. So it's really important to sometimes if you to find your tribe, you have to step out of your comfort zone and just
absolutely,
approach people.
of course.
Um, the next one is how did you cope with dyspraxia when you were younger, and where or whom can I find support for my 15-year-old son?
Can I answer that question? So I worked as a behaviour consultant. So to the mum, I would suggest reach out to the Senko at the school.
Okay.
I would go through your son's reports and put together what the challenges are, because sometimes what teachers tend to do, they try to make out that maybe it's a behavioural problem, and it's not a
Mm,
behavioural problem. There's underlying difficulties, but yes, mum should sort of reach out to the Senko and find out what support they can actually get for their son, and to also get a mentor to support him to raise their self-esteem, because that can be a
Fantastic.
challenge for young men.
Yes. Self-esteem improvement is really important. Daniel, do you have anything else to add to that?
I would like to say coping when I was younger was very hard. And I agree. I have to agree. Teachers do tend to brand you as being trouble, um, not really engaging with work, and just saying that you are the problem.
Hmm.
And um, it's good to try and have a talk with your son as well, and try to help him express in his own words what he feels is that he's having trouble with, and then because maybe he has trouble articulating what it is.
Yeah.
That's another thing. And then also, yes, go speak to a Senko.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. We've run we on time, and this conversation has been amazing. But we're gonna finish this up by anybody just each and everyone just leaving one or two sentences that you want the audience to take away. We're gonna start that with Shay.
I think it can be so easy to just narrow in on what you can't do, or even if you're a parent of someone with dyspraxia, maybe what they're not doing. But I think it's really important just to encourage and cheerlead them on. I think it makes such a difference just to have people in your corner who will support you and encourage you.
Fabulous. Over to you, Bookie.
I'd say that it's okay to be like you. And I always say this to people who are like neurodivergent. I'd always say to people, like, because like people in case of people like question about why you're a certain way and not like this way, I always say this to people: don't apologize for those who want the, and I always say, don't feel sorry for those who don't understand who you are and how you do things and how you operate with who you are in life. Instead, feel sorry for those who are always questioning you or trying to bring you down for who you are and what you're trying to do in life. At the end of the day, you are you. At the end of the day, you are your amazing self.
Yes. Amazing. Esther, what about you?
I think just embrace yourself.
Hmm.
You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you're going to be your own cup of tea.
So beautifully put and so concise. No pressure, Daniel.
I don't think I could say any better. Um, you know, and embrace yourself, understand your strengths, you know, develop your strengths, and be proud of who you are, because you're still here,
Yeah.
you're thriving, and as long as you have a belief in yourself, you'll get far and you do well.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you all to the amazing panelists, and thank you for all of everyone that's been watching live. If you happen to watch the recording, please continue the conversation in the comments, like and share. Please subscribe to the Dyspraxia magazine. There's a lot of content. Recently we had the Dyspraxic Awareness Week, which was earlier this month, and there are loads of incredible videos that people can engage with. Um, just finally, how can people find you? Starting with Esther.
LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay. What about Becky?
Oh, I was on mute there, so I apologize. I'd say link. No, I would just say LinkedIn,
Okay.
along with I'd say TikTok.
Okay. What about you, Shay?
I'd say sorry, LinkedIn too, or on Instagram. I think I'm under Black Neurodiverse. So yeah, feel free to
Okay.
follow.
And Daniel, what about you?
You can find me on Disconnect Adults on YouTube. You can find me on Disconnect Dan on X, and you can also find me on Instagram under Disconnect Adults as well.
Do you want to say a little bit about what Disconnect is?
Yes, Disconnect was set up to be an online resource for adults living with dyspraxia. I have a website, disconnectadults.com, and I just write articles upon articles that
Amazing.
may be able to help. And I also do a weekly YouTube show talking about different aspects of living as a adult dyspraxic.
Amazing. That's phenomenal. Everybody check out Disconnect. Okay. Thank you guys and see you later. Let's continue this conversation.